A voluntary metamorphosis. The world in which every person lives exists only for that person. Each mind has its own fabricated world, in which it lives with people of its own creation. Imagine that some people are sleeping next to each other, and each of them is having a dream. Even if they are dreaming about the same thing, for instance, a particular tree, what they see and feel is completely separate from what all the others see and feel. Only the subject of their dreams is the same. To take this example even further, imagine that these people are dreaming about other people in the group. In that dream, let us assume that they are living with each other and talking to each other, not realizing that they are only dreaming each other. Every one of the people in the group is ignorant that the others are also imagining him or her in their self-made dreams and are living with that illusory image, but think they are in contact with physical realities. It appears that we all live together in a common social or geographical environment, but in reality, it is only bodies, flesh and bones, that are together. The people in those bodies live in their own worlds in absolute solitude. What you live in is an amazing dream. However, no matter how amazing it is still only a dream. Many self-knowledge gurus have noted that human beings have the ability to come out of this deep sleep. In fact, they have emphasized that this is our most important duty as human beings. If we believe that natural evolution is still in progress, it can be claimed that experiencing this awakening will be a decisive and significant mutation in the human evolutionary process. This is going to be a revolutionary evolutionary metamorphosis, which needs to be done individually and voluntarily. No one will do it for us. No one can even start it for us, not even our gods. And the thought? Thinking is a complex phenomenon, perhaps the most complicated operation performed by the brains and minds of the creatures called human. All the issues raised in our discussion so far have been directly related to thinking. How could we expect that relating to the issues discussed in this book is possible without acquiring sufficient experience to observe what is called thinking? To better understand the argument of this book, one needs to achieve a tangible sensation of terms such as mind, thought, mental space, and stream of thinking. I have repeatedly noted that the topics discussed here are not philosophical issues to be tackled through abstract reasoning. Rather, they should be examined directly through everyday experiences. This discussion leads to fundamental philosophical conclusions, but the way through them is observation, in the sense that one cannot merely rely on thinking and has to observe as well. Therefore, to have an understanding of thought and thinking, let's examine these phenomena through direct observation without getting trapped into abstract and philosophical arguments. What is thought and thinking? What do we mean by repeating these words? One could define thinking as a stream of words and images that are produced by the brain or somehow appear somewhere in the mind. Given this definition, when we say that somebody is thinking, we are indicating that a stream of images and words is flowing in the thinker's mind. These mental creations are immaterial entities that are used as arbitrary signs and symbols in the process of thinking. That is, the mind produces abstract representations of real objects and creates a mental construct as a representative of the real world. But the question is, what type of relationship is there between the creatures of the mental world and those of the real external world? For example, consider the word water. In the physical world, water is a substance that can be physically defined and examined. It has physical properties such as volume, temperature, and density, which can be precisely measured. For example, when we say, "The temperature of the water in this container is 100 degrees Fahrenheit," the addressee grasps what we mean and knows exactly what we are talking about, regardless of the accuracy of the stated information. In other words, exact and specific information is exchanged between the speaker and the listener. But the situation is not that clear when we consider the water imagined in the mind. First, it is just a word, comprised of a few letters that have no rational reference to real and physical water. Second, it is an abstract symbol with no physically definable properties. For instance, the word water, the feeling of water, or remembering water in the mind has no observable physical volume or density or temperature. This mental water is merely an abstraction or concept. It cannot even dampen the mental space. Furthermore, this mental water is imagined differently in different minds. For example, not only are the letters and sounds that produce water in English different from those in French, but also the feeling that an English speaker has toward the word water can be different from what a French speaker feels in his or her mind when hearing or uttering this word. The sense of water is quite different for someone who lives by the sea than for one who lives in the desert. Moreover, this mental feeling can change for a person over time as he or she experiences various events. For example, a long drought would leave a different impression of water in the mind than the one left after a deluge. The example of water can be extended to every other concept that has a physical equivalent. Concepts such as wind, fire, journey, money, electricity, mother, father, teacher, and thousands of others. Therefore, similar words do not necessarily represent similar mental images or similar feelings in different minds. The feelings that each word evokes in the mind are related to a range of factors, such as family situation, environment, geography, culture, society, politics, economy, religion, and so on. Our mental world, that is, the world in which we really live, which is exactly the same world we feel within us, is a combination of a variety of shifting images, words, and symbols. On the other hand, the external world exists for itself, independent of our mind's activities. My feelings about snow differ from childhood to adulthood to old age. The snow has not changed. It does not care about my feelings. It has its existence independent of me and without being even slightly affected by this chaos in my mind. Everything out there is like this. The external world is not and cannot be influenced by my mental world or be a function of it. This mental world is the one in which I find myself, and it disappears entirely as soon as my mind stops working for any reason. But nothing changes out there. Everything continues to be. What makes this mental world endure is merely the constant flow of my thoughts. It is important to realize the essential difference and distinctness of these two worlds. Others. Thinking can also be regarded as my mental dialogue with myself or with the images created by my mind, images that I refer to as others. We have already discussed these others and the essence of their nature. I think it is now a good time for you to try to see the others again in the light of this new vision. The stream of words in the mental space. Where do these thoughts and streams of words and images come from? Our thoughts are not in our right ear or left leg. As discussed earlier, our basic feeling is that we have a space in the mind where thoughts, that is, words and images, are produced and streamed. It should be noted that I am using the phrase mental space only for purposes of discussion, since it is not comparable to a physical space and lacks its characteristics, such as volume, weight, temperature, and so on. I call it space, just because that is the way we feel it. But no matter how we may want to define or name this mental phenomenon, we are conscious of it, and we can turn our attention to it. However, we barely use this capacity of paying attention to it and being conscious of it to examine what lies in that space. We are not concerned here with what other activities may or may not occur in the mind. I prefer to concentrate merely on thoughts and thinking. Even if the question arises, what is the mind? My answer would be, a space where thoughts are produced, comprehended, and felt. A more general answer would be that the mind is the space where the person feels his being and presence. Close your eyes and try to find yourself. Sit in a dark, silent place and try to feel the space in which you find yourself, where you sense your I-ness. This is what I mean by the mental space. Given our discussion so far, it is clear that we are not referring to what is physically in the actual skull or brain. Basically, this space cannot be shown or located. It is a type of sensing and feeling. Its essence lies in us feeling it and is the same as that feeling. It is the specific state in which we find our sense of presence in inner silence. The most noticeable entity that fills this space, if it can be called an entity, is our thought stream. The mind produces thoughts through what is called thinking, and these thoughts fill the mental space. In darkness and silence, I find myself in a vague, unknown space that cannot be located, where the most prominent activity is thinking, right?